Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Aisha Subarkash. The UN's latest climate summit, COP28, has kicked off in the United Arab Emirates financial hub of Dubai. The meeting is bringing together world leaders to discuss the ongoing global energy crisis, food security and even mental health challenges brought on by rising temperatures. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is also attending the event, where he is expected to push Ankara's own green energy proposals. President Erdogan, who visited Abu Dhabi in July to sign $50 billion in trade deals, met with his UAE counterpart Mohamed Bin Zayed. The talks covered Turkiye's role in reducing emissions and the latest situation in Gaza, where a week-long truce between Israel and Hamas seems to be over. Ankara has long advocated for more concrete action and preventative measures against global heating. As a significant contributor to the Paris Climate Agreement, Turkey is working to reach a net zero emission goal by 2053, as it generates a large percentage of its energy from renewables. And now to further discuss the COP28 climate talks, joining me from Hamburg, Germany, is Sarah Bozabandi. She is a research fellow at the German Institute for Global and Area Studies. And from Doha, Ali Bakir, he is an assistant professor at Qatar University. A warm welcome to you both, and thanks for joining me on Straight Talk. So, Ali, how far has the world, you think, has gone in its fight against the climate crisis since the adoption of Paris Agreement in 2015?
Well, not that much, unfortunately. I mean, the agenda was pretty much ambitious in terms of the required goals, but the implementation on reality was way behind. And now countries are meeting again to reassess this agenda and try to push forward for more achievements on this level. Now the goal is to cut or limit at least the rise in temperature in the world on the world stage by 1.5 degrees centigrade, but this is not an easy target to achieve, especially that this year is considered one of the hottest years in the recorded human history. So they have a lot to work on. On the other hand, also it is hard to convince advanced countries or the majority of the countries around the world that this agenda of countering the climate change is credible, while wars are enabled everywhere by Western countries. They need to focus more on the sustainability. They need to cut funding wars. They need to stop wars. They need to focus on the humanity and the life of humans. And this, of course, not an easy target. Now, the UAE, through this important summit, is trying to focus on this issue. However, the Israeli war against the Palestinians is shifting the focus away to the, unfortunately, sad reality of the region, and this is also another challenge for the meeting the goals of the climate change.
So, Sarah, what do you think? How much of an importance does a summit carry in terms of accelerating action to address the climate crisis at a time, as Ali just mentioned, when global temperatures are hitting record highs? I mean, do you believe all world leaders are on board?
Yes, I agree with Ali that the situation is quite dire, and we are facing a real existential threat for the life on the planet. But unfortunately, the effort that is required to save the situation is not appropriate to the degree of threat that we are facing. Of course, it's quite an important gesture for a country like the UAE to host this summit, but at the same time, we're talking about a region that is one of the largest exporters of hydrocarbon resources and one of the most significant beneficiaries of hydrocarbon trades in the world. So there is this element of speculation or criticism, if you wish to name it, that there is a conflict of interest, whilst the leaders in the GCC might sound determined to be cooperative to addressing these challenges. But in reality, it's that they are really profiting from the export. So are there really going to be major steps taken by these countries and other countries? Remember, the hydrocarbon resources that are being produced in the GCC are being consumed elsewhere in the world. And one of the most important, one of the largest global consumers of hydrocarbon resources, that is the United States, during the Trump administration, withdrew from the Paris Agreement. And, they are not complying with all the requirements. So it is quite a challenging situation. There are a lot of conflict of interest, but one can hope that these sort of summits are going to bring some fruit and some results to addressing these challenges.
So, Ali, the UAE's President Mohamed Bin Zayed has announced a $30 billion climate change fund at the summit. Is this more of a gesture, or is the country really invested in reaching its targets of zero emission?
Well, according to the Emirati statements, they are quite investing in this agenda. This is not, of course, it's a good gesture, it's a good step forward, but it's one step along a long road in this agenda. So it also requires big contributions from the advanced countries. I have to say here that also framing the oil exporter countries as the problem of the climate change is not also fair or accurate, because throughout at least the last 100 years, the main countries, sources of problem causing the problem of climate change is the advanced economies. On top of them, as my colleague said, the US and also the European Union and the European countries. So I think that we should be fair in terms of criticism. We should also be realistic in terms of the achieved goals. Even these countries, I mean the oil exporter countries, if they wanted to contribute in this sense, and they are doing, at least theoretically and through the official statements, they cannot do this alone, and no matter how big their contribution, it will be small given the size of the Western economies in this sense, and the responsibility also built on those economies to push forward for an agenda that addresses the problems of the climate change. In this sense, also, we have noticed that the contributions of the Western countries, including the US, Germany, and others, to this fund was minimal, which also brings us back to the main issue, the advanced economic and Western countries and their contribution to this problem and the required contribution to counter the climate change problem, which is a threat at the end of the day to the whole world, as we said.
So, Sarah, the conflict in the Middle East has added to the global energy squeeze that was already reeling from the war in Ukraine. How have these conflicts impacted the global climate crisis debate and instead put security first for the countries?
Yes, unfortunately, we are facing with multiple challenges. In Europe, there is, of course, the war in Ukraine. In the Middle East, there are several fronts. We mostly are now entangled in the debate around Gaza, but there has been problems in Sudan, in Libya, in Syria. Most of the region is facing security threats in Yemen, elsewhere. So it's unfortunately dealing with these crises is absorbing a lot of diplomatic capacity, a lot of public attention, a lot of financial resources, prioritizing peace and security over these very existential threat. And unfortunately, the countries that have, as Ali also rightly pointed out, that have lower income are facing most of the challenges and are bearing most of the difficulties caused by the environmental difficulties and environmental changes. And these are the countries that they really need to receive investment and assistance to be able to cope and to adopt with the new formatting in terms of consumption of energy and in terms of facing the environmental hazards that the world is facing. But war and insecurity doesn't really help the situation, because a lot of, as I mentioned, capacity is being absorbed by addressing these challenges. If they are being addressed, in reality, unfortunately, we're not seeing any meaningful changes and any meaningful solution to this crisis, but at the same time is distracting the policy community and public from paying attention to this very existential threat.
So, Ali, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan also attended the summit to push Ankara's ambitious green energy goals. This is also the second trip of Erdogan to the UAE in just a few months. So, how close has the relationship between the two capitals become lately?
Well, given the high number of high-profile visits between the two countries and also the strategic agreements that were signed during the last 2 years, I say the relations between the UAE and Turkey are very close. I think that, in fact, for many observers, these relations are accelerating in unprecedented manner on political, economic, and defense levels. I think that this is enabled by shared understanding that common threats require unity, cooperation, and collective action in this sense. And of course, the energy also agenda is not out of the focus of the two parties. Turkey is an ambitious player when it comes to this issue, and it has zero waste initiatives, which was initiated in 2017 and turned into an international initiative later sponsored by the UN, and is actively working on alternative energy, green energy, and other projects. And of course, the UAE is also ambitious player looking forward to lead an agenda in this sense, and both parties have potentials that allow them to cooperate even more on this issue in the coming period. I think that this is one dimension of the relations. There are other dimensions, but both parties are working very well and progressing also fast, especially defense level. Also, on the level of the policy coordination, there is a progress, and I think that this is also derived from the understanding of the need to diversify relation and work together on the regional issues.
All right, Sarah and Ali, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.